the lead for, I think it's working group 1, isn't it? On looking at the intersection of technology and work as it relates to older workers themselves. And he's going to talk today about a piece of research that he's been doing, looking at this fairly contentious question of whether older or younger workers are more adaptable to the use of new technology. And I believe, if I'm not correct, that you're going to be using the job control model with Karasik, isn't it? I won't spoil too much, so I'll hand the floor over to him, and he can talk a little bit about his research.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about the work that we've been doing. Let's see if I can show you my screen. You should be able to see the presentation right now with a picture from Batman. Great. So when I lecture to my students about technology and older workers, I like to show them to bring them to the Batman Begins movie, I think 2005 or so, where Morgan Freeman obviously is an older worker by any definition, but he's also the most high-tech person in the entire movie trilogy, who builds all the amazing stuff, the high-tech cars, helicopters, etc., that Batman is using, which is great, but also, yeah, it's really the exception there, because it's clear that many people believe older workers struggle with technology. Nothing new here, preaching to the choir. My former coworker and I set to write some stuff about that. It's still a draft, so it hasn't been published anywhere yet. Briefly to introduce myself, I did my PhD in Utrecht at Utrecht University on older workers and personnel policies. Then I also did a postdoc there on digitalization. So that's where the two come together. And currently I'm on a different project again, because the previous project ended, which is about retirement of migrants. So this is more of the work I've been doing over the past years than my current day-to-day job. So this, and by the way, if you have questions you think are important to ask during the meeting, by all means, fire away. If it turns out that I'm only responding to questions and have no time for my story, I'll wait for answering them to the end of the presentation. But otherwise, just let me know if you have a question. So this is a bit older data, but I think it's probably still true today. Managers across 8 European countries were asked to score older and younger workers on a couple of traits. You can subtract one score from the other to get a different score, where you find that older workers are deemed to be more loyal, reliable, etc. on the right hand of the picture, and are not so good as younger workers on flexibility, creativity, and especially technology. It's clearly the largest age gap you find here. So, there has been quite some stuff on techno stress and age. Are older workers more vulnerable to this or not? Mixed results, I would say. Of course, stress is related to performance and functioning, but yeah, there are also rather different constructs. So this work has been done, quite a bit, but yeah, it's actually rare to find research directly comparing the functioning of older and younger workers as induced by technological change. So that's our major question. We have a couple of reasons to expect that technological change induces an age gap in performance, which could be, if there's new technology, everyone's performance increases, but it increases more for younger workers than for older workers. That would create an age gap. Or it could be it gets better for younger workers, it gets worse for older workers. That could also induce an age gap. And it's even possible that it gets worse for everyone, but especially older workers. That's not really likely, I think, because then why would organizations come up with technology if it just destroys everyone's productivity? So I think that the first scenario is most likely, but yeah, all could be true. Arguments found in the literature are plentiful. Technology could be more difficult, could make work more interrupted, which is particularly harder for older workers. It could increase the work pressure, and older workers may have more stress about privacy and career stuff. There may be more arguments, but generally arguments are in this direction. There will be an age gap benefiting younger workers more than older workers. So I'm a sociologist, which means when I try to understand the productivity of this person, I want to do it not by looking at this person, but also by their context. So the context in this paper, it's 3 elements. First is autonomy, which is indeed, as Matt mentioned, derived from the job demand resource model. I think all 3 are we're going to look at 3 resources from the JDR model, so to speak, to see how people deal with the demand of increased technological change and the pressures that come from that. Well, the JDR is, of course, it's a model designed not for explaining functioning, but for explaining burnout. So it is a bit of a stretch. I've seen quite some other papers also stretching the job demand resource model to explain stuff like job satisfaction, which tend to go pretty well. So I think it's fair to see how well the model goes to predict functioning as well. So we'll see. The first resource is autonomy. So which is how much help do you get are you able to reschedule your work in a way that you can do it while there are helpful colleagues around, as in when do you do your work, or how is like if you need to work with new software, is it okay if you find a workaround to still use the old software if that just works better for you? Like these kind of autonomy things. Second resource is supervisor support. Supervisors can both help people directly as well as connect them to other people, which is also helpful. And finally, it could generate an atmosphere in which it's okay to try out stuff and make mistakes, which can be conducive to working with tech. So in this picture, the supervisor would still be Obama rather than Biden. All right, and then there's training participation as a resource. If you are able to participate in training, that provides you with opportunities to learn about the new technology and also time. Also, some studies suggest older workers can learn technology just as well as younger workers. It just takes them a bit longer to do it. So, giving them time to work on that can also help. All right, so that's the question for today. Is there an age gap due to technology, and B, is this gap reduced by any of the tools, any of the resources available to them? So for this, we're using data from the European Sustainable Workforce Survey. This was collected in 9 different EU countries, or they were all EU countries by the time we collected it. And in these 9 countries, HR managers were interviewed about the organization, and then within this organization, there was also a bunch of people interviewed about their jobs. So we have multi-level data, which is nice for our purpose today. It's not fully representative of the entire labor force, but it is diverse in the sense that we have different sectors and different size groups. Thanks to our funders, yada yada. So how do we measure functioning? For this, we use the individual work performance scale that's developed by psychologists. This means that people are self-assessing their functioning. There are some caveats with this. If you just ask people, are you working well? That's a hard question to answer. If you ask people, how good are you at time management? To what extent do you finish your work on time? Do you take on extra responsibilities? Generally, people are better at answering those kind of questions. the skill has been validated across cultures also, so I think we can use it across countries. But yeah, self-assessed functioning, yeah, it's always a point for the discussion, of course. Technological change, measured by these questions, which is a scale based on these different items. To what extent has there been technological change in the past 3 years? And then, well, we ask for different kinds of change. So, well, these are the skills we have used for autonomy, for supervised support, and for training. I don't think it's, like they're pre-existing skills for autonomy and supervised support. For training, we just count the total number of training days in the past year. We don't know whether the training was related to technology. That is a weakness here. We think, so that's an issue here. We think people are generally taking training that are relevant to them, but you can't fully know for sure. All right. So job performance was then measured on a scale from 1 to 4. And we measured age in 2 ways, in a linear way and using age groups to probe if if the age effect is linear, or when should we really compare all the workers with the rest. Stay tuned for the answer. The answer is it's not linear. So this figure looks at what does technology do with the performance of an age group. So there we see that it's okay for anyone, for any age group up to 60. Performance seems to, well, benefit just a little. It's a scale from 1 to 4, so if it goes up by 0.1, it's only a small influence. But for the large age group, it is a lot. It's a lot different. So this suggests that yes, there is an age gap in performance due to technology, but only if you really look at the oldest group of older workers. Looking at 50+ workers compared to younger ones, you don't really find a big gap here. All right, then some speculative interpretation here. It could be that, well, the 60+ group is closer to retirement. Perhaps they are less interested in learning the new technology, and that's why they are more, well, already mentally checking out a bit. That could be something that's different for this group than for the younger groups. Or perhaps, perhaps they are offered, well, like they are a bit like age discriminated into what kind of stuff they are offered on the workplace. Or perhaps they were the final group for whom the computer was, well, kind of absent when they started their working careers. So they lacked these formative experiences. This is all speculative interpretation, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts if you have other ideas. It's more for the discussion than things we can test, because we can't test any of this. Then, how does it matter in terms of resources? So we now know that the difference is between 60+ and younger workers. So that's the group we are comparing. So there are all sorts of controls here. Compared to the group of younger workers who don't have a lot of autonomy, how is it different for older workers? And then we see here that if we look at the coefficients, can I see my mouse here? Can you see my mouse? It is okay, great, good. Oh, that's great. Okay, so we can see here that for younger workers, the coefficient is virtually 0. This means that for younger workers, it doesn't really matter if you have a lot of autonomy or little autonomy. In both situations, tech does the same for your performance. For older workers, we see, we do see quite a difference. For the low job condition, meaning older workers with little autonomy, they score worse on their performance due to technology. Older workers with a lot of autonomy, they score, well, not statistically significantly different. So in layman's terms, if you don't have a lot of technology, older workers' performance will be worse due to technological change. If you do have a lot of autonomy, it's actually comparable to younger workers. And we find the same for supervisor support. If you don't experience supervisor support as an older worker, your performance will be worse due to technology. If you do experience supervisor support, the age gap disappears. For workers with a lot of supervisor support, older and younger workers respond the same to technology. And for training, well, you will see these two coefficients are virtually the same. For training, it doesn't matter. Regardless of whether you had training or not, older workers perform worse due to technological change. So we've discussed 3 different resources. It's a graphical way of showing it. But let's get to the interpretation. I'm almost at 15 minutes already. So we find, yes, there is an age gap, but the age gap is only between 60+ workers and younger workers. And we find this in all of the, 9 countries. If we jackknife the analysis by omitting one at the time, we find the same stuff. And looking at resources, we find that resources tend to help for workers with a lot of autonomy and for workers with who report themselves that the supervisor helps them a lot. The age gap disappears. Then the age gap is only visible for workers with low autonomy and for workers with little supervisor support. As for training, we don't find that training has any of these influences. Our interpretation, which again is speculation, so curious to hear your thoughts, is because perhaps training is endogenous. In other words, the people who are worst at dealing with technology may be the ones who get the training. So then, even though the training may help them, since they were the people struggling most to begin with, even after the training, they're still bad at it. They're better than before, but they're still bad at it. So you still find that, so you would find that the trained employees do not, perform better than the untrained employees. I think this could be a plausible interpretation. Curious to hear your thoughts. And this kind of, endogeneity issue, that's not there for autonomy or for supervisor support, I think. All right. So we have some more information if you want to know more about the data collection, but I think let's see what you're interested in. Thanks for your attention, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, I'll open the floor up for questions. If you could just put your hand up, or your virtual hand up, if you have a question. I'll start off with just asking, from what I have seen from various studies which have looked at performance of older and younger workers when it comes to physical capabilities. There were a couple of things that came out. I'd welcome your thoughts on this. One is you're looking at things from an individual basis. Are individual older and younger workers better adopters of technology? From what I understand from studies on performance, which look at performance on a team basis, it generally shows that maybe younger workers perform faster than older workers, like in fact, studies on factory workers, but that mixed teams tend to work the best. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts about that in terms of adaptation of technology. Can teams a team which includes older and younger workers be more adaptable or less adaptable? I know this isn't the focus of this paper, but I'd welcome your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, actually, we also did some analysis on that, but I left it out to save some time for today. So this was the data collection. In fact, there was another third layer of data collection. We also interviewed department heads, like I think 800 or 900 department managers, who also answered a survey about what's happening in their team. And there we also, they were also asked about the productivity of their team. and about the age composition of their team. So we also checked, do we find here that, well, older teams are performing worse due to technological change or not? And there we found no age influence. So this would match, Matt, with your point that mixed teams, are fine. Like older workers are not an issue. It's not like an organization with more older workers in its team is more likely to perform worse. So yeah, that's good that it's neutralized by younger workers. That could be why not. A second reason is we asked managers about the share of 50+ workers. But we already found that it's between 50 and 60, there's rather comparable to the rest of the age distribution. So perhaps if we asked for 60+ workers, there would have been an age effect. But yeah, that was not possible to test. But the point that productivity is more a team issue, not just a personal issue. That's that really agree there.
The other thing that I understand from projects on performance is that there's a difference between there tends to be a very big difference between maximal performance and ability to perform to maximum capacity and ability to just perform to sufficient capacity. That generally speaking, older worker, when you compare older workers and younger workers when it comes to physical capabilities, younger people probably, they can run faster, they can lift more, they can, maybe they have more endurance and everything, but you usually don't need maximal performance in most aspects of work. Is the same true, do you think, when it comes to technology, that maybe younger people, well, at least compared younger people I recognize here as everybody under the age of 60 and then 60 plus. Do you think that that's a reflection of maximal performance or just being able to sufficiently use technology in order to get on with your job? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Good point. So I think we didn't distinguish between like scoring a 5 or a 4 as a top performer versus scoring a 2 or a 3 as an average performer. It's plausible that it works the way you suggest. It would be interesting to see if there's if we find anything there. Yeah, interesting thought.
Anybody else have some thoughts on this, especially around? Oh, sorry, David. Yeah.
Hi, it's really interesting. I just had a question about one of the consequences of digitalization is work intensification, and you mentioned as well about burnout being used in relation to the JDR measure. One possibility might be that people who are older have therefore had longer in work, particular types of work, and are therefore more likely to experience burnout, which affects the extent to which they feel that they are operating effectively. I just wondered if you had any sort of, I know this is not really the focus of your paper, but I wondered if you had any thoughts on that. And the other thing I wanted to ask about was about sectoral differences. So whether there were sort of differences between sectors.
So of course we did in our analysis. We did control for sector. I would have to look up what the coefficients were in terms of what sectors. But then we only check like what do the results change if we omit certain sectors. I don't think we had a cross-level interaction with these coefficients between the sectors. You would expect that it's different in one sector than the other?
I don't know. It was just a quick question. It was a question really. I was sort of thinking, you know, it's like some sectors, like I think one of the sectors you had was computing, technology, you know, as kind of not is a function of that sector very importantly in its own right. Other sectors have been sort of maybe transformed in ways that technology wasn't used quite so much in the past. I guess you kind of capture that with the question about how much change you've seen in the workplace, generally speaking. But I was just curious,
Nie,
really.
jakoś weszłam na jakieś spotkanie.
Yeah, so it really we have measured the kind of change over the past years, but we don't know what the base level of technology was at the beginning of this 3-year period. Yeah, that's, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Thanks. Yeah, so we don't know the base level, and presumably that's different for different sectors. Yeah, like I think telecommunication and financial service, probably the base level of technology use was higher than than some of the other sectors. So yeah.
Well, what about burnout? What the thing about? Any thoughts on that?
I'm sure that's yeah, like if you feel overburdened by your job, that's gonna both make you more likely to experience burnout symptoms as be detrimental to your productivity. So I'm sure they're correlated negatively, the burnout feelings and functioning. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. We didn't have any burnout measures. We controlled for general health, but that's could be any health related thing. We don't have any distinguish between mental or physical health, just a general health measure.
Okay, thank you. That's really interesting. An interesting presentation. Thank you for that.
Ivana?
Yeah, hi everyone. I just wanted to ask, although it wasn't a focus of your paper also, but you mentioned that it might be that that the oldest group actually is the one that's actually near retirement and it's not motivated to learn new things. What about the levels? Did you measure that levels of burnout at that group? Why I'm asking this? In Serbia, we did some kind of a study on a large national sample, and we actually found that the levels of burnout among oldest actually co-workers that were nearing retirement were significantly lower because they adopted strategies of kind of a silent quitting, and given that the main criterion variable was performance. Maybe what would be your thoughts? Could it be that it's kind of a like protective factor for them? They don't want to perform. It's not that it's difficult for them, but it's just I don't want to perform on my maximum. And if I have a support of my supervisor and all of the other things, I might be performing better. But maybe at the end of the career, nearing retirement, it's like I find a way to make a balance with, in general life factors. Just what do you think about that?
Yeah, so we didn't have any we didn't have any measure on burnout. So it's possible that that it's right what you're saying, but yeah, we just don't know. We didn't have a measure on burnout, which would be interesting given indeed how important burnout is to the job demand resource models. It would make sense to contemplate that, but yeah, we just don't have that available for us right now. So yeah, we can't really do anything. Yeah, then you ask about the different parts, like whether people want to perform or whether they don't want to. Like whether they can't or whether they don't want to. Yeah, let's see if I can find something. Maybe we did do something with that. I'm not sure. So we had performance or functioning was like a 10-item scale, and there were different items related to like the direct task related yeah, okay, so let me share the screen again. So it's a 10-item scale, but you could argue it consists of different subscales. Let's see where it is. Yeah, so this was how we measured functioning. And it could be argued that the first 5 items are like task performance, and the latter 5 items are more like contextual performance. The task performance being, well, how good are you at doing the stuff that you need to do yourself? And contextual performance is about going beyond that. Well, apart from just doing the stuff that you're told, what else are you doing to, well, help out the organization? So we also, like, we replicated the analysis also with these 2 subskills. And well, as for supervisor support, the results were roughly the same. So there it's like we did see this age gap for both subskills, for 60+ workers versus younger workers. For supervisor support, it managed to close the age gap for both subskills, and training, well, didn't help for any of them. When we split them, autonomy also, well, the coefficient well, became no longer statistically significant for both skills, actually, which, well, is surprising because I would have expected that it would be like one of the 2 would be the driving power. But no, yeah, so that's what happened when we split it. But the main point of there is an age gap, that's true for both the task performance and the contextual performance. And for 2 out of the 3 resources, they are the same regardless of whether you look at 2 separate skills or at a single skill.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering whether it would be interesting maybe to include in some next steps, maybe some kind of motivational factors, and to see whether the technology is actually the issue or is something else. But thank you.
Yeah, like I think like motivation is particularly an issue for the contextual performance. Like this is stuff you have to do, otherwise you get in trouble with your boss. This is the stuff, yeah, which, yeah, you probably won't get in trouble directly when you don't do it. So that's more, well, things that motivation becomes more important. That's what I would expect.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was a really interesting presentation and very interesting conversation. I know that you ended the presentation with this open question on whether the differences between the 60+ and everybody else was a generational one, or in terms of proximity to retirement. You would assume if it was generation, it would just sort of eventually go away. Although, you know, maybe the changing nature of technology is that by the time you're in your 60s, you know, your interface with technology is going to be different than it was when you were in your 50s. But it would be interesting to see how that question unwinds, especially with the you know, the changing nature of work and the changing use of technology. I'm going to have to move on now, and we're just to make sure that I looked in the attendance list. I didn't see Asif there, but he might have been coming under an alias. Let me just check to make sure that he's not online, because if he was, then and I skipped over him, then that would be a huge shame. Well, he doesn't seem to be online. I'll catch up with him later, and we'll have a presentation from him maybe a little bit later in the year. But just to show how serendipitous the seminars can often be, a couple of days ago, I got a call from, I got an email from Rogerio Pessoto Hirata to say how excited he was that we were going to be that we were going to be having a presentation on this subject because he's been working with colleagues on the same subject. And as I was talking about how we were looking for Asaf, sent me an email to say, well, if you've got a slot open, then he's very open to giving a presentation. So you're in for a little bit of a treat now, especially I am especially because I'd love to hear from him. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Rogerio, who's going to be talking a little bit about his research, which is also on the use of music and dance when it comes to tackling age discrimination.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Just
Yep.
make sure. Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much. I wasn't prepared to do this, but it was nice that I got this opportunity. I was here, very interesting in this group, and I have to say that I'm pretty new. So it's the first time I'm attending these meetings. So just to present really shortly, my name is Rogerio. I'm from Brazil, but I'm associate professor here in Aalborg University, Denmark, in the Faculty of Medicine, and I have been working extensively with older subjects for some time now. And my interest is also to improve their health and quality of life from different perspectives. And I have a presentation here which I will try to show you some of our last studies on how we could actually train these subjects. There are sometimes they don't have the same access to training that regular people would have. So I will try to share my screen here. Let me know if you can not see it. Just a minute. Great. You can see it. I just have to make it bigger. Do you see the big screen? I cannot see you guys anymore, so I hope you can see the big one. Let me know if it's wrong. So here I will talk about the digital training for physical and mental health in other adults. What is the idea of a lot of our projects here that I'm doing is I'm very focused on falls and older adults because there's a lot of consequences about falling. But if I just give a number that involves money, so you can see that here in AU we have about 25 billion euros they're spending in treating falls across the entire EU per year, and that number just gets bigger and bigger because we are simply getting older, and unfortunately the problem is actually not reducing. So it's a lot of money. And if you think about how many people is actually falling, for the other adults, 1/3 of every older population, they are falling at least once per year. So 33% of the population, the older population, they will have at least one fall. And what we have here is that, if they survive a fall, it's very often that their quality of life is extremely reduced, and they will need assistance and a lot of things that they cannot do it anymore. For example, taking care of themselves and then do things at home will be a problem, and they will need assistance. But what are the consequences of a fall accident when we look at these older people? And then here we look at 116 older adults here close to our university in the north part of Denmark. We thought to look at, if you had a fall, what happened to you afterwards? And we run different tests, clinical tests and lab tests to find what is happening to these people after they fall. And what we're seeing that they are getting higher fat percent. They are get less agile to walk. Their balance is extremely affected. They're having more pain during the day. And something that's new that we are trying to publish these results, in a bit. We are actually seeing that when these older adults are trying to multitask, and this is very important for us, when you're living the outside world, you have to multitask all the time. The ability to multitask and keep their balance, it's also extremely affected. So we found that after fall, this is not really, really good. So when you look at the state of the art, try to see what is happening within these fall accidents, all the adults. We could see that, as I start saying, all the adults, they don't have the same access many times for the solutions that we're trying to implement. And this is due to many different reasons. And I'm going to talk about a bit about it. What I think it's a pity is that when you look at why these people are falling, why they have so much health problems related to those problems, I think it's a pity that because a lot of the risk factors relate to these falls are physical factors that can be modified by physical training. So here are the factors that we could show to you. And I will just focus on the left side of this figure. So you can see the ones that I colored in orange/yellow are the ones factors which we know that we can affect with training. So basically, the only two factors that today is our knowledge for a risk factor that we cannot do anything about it is if you are over 80 years, we cannot go back in time, or previous falls. We cannot do that. But all the other things, muscle weakness, gait and balance problems, poor vision, cognitive impairments, arthritis, and depression, we have evidence in the literature that we can improve that. So if you think about, okay, there's a lot about being physical active. So I think one of the very obvious question is, it's enough to just be physical active then? So we would actually reduce quite a lot of the problem that we have in the older population. I think that's a very obvious question because a lot of the risk factors are related to training. So then we look at now about 280 all the adults here, and we try to identify how much activity they do every day. So they will be wearing these step counters for 5 days, and we will measure how much they're walking. And they were in average about 9,400 steps a day, these people that we're looking at. So I consider this pretty much active. I don't walk that much every day in average. So they were very active. So I think it's a very interesting population because we can address if this population would then be falling less because they are just walking a lot. And then what we see here, we monitor them over a year to see if that statistics of 30%, 33% falls. Actually, what we fall is pretty much the same. If you see these ones that fall once or have more than one fall per year, we can see that we get pretty close to the 33%, even though they were very active. So that's a very interesting question because even though the factors are related to physical activity, to be, walking, if you walk a lot, you're not really reducing your risk factors. So no, just walk a lot, you're not safe. But one of the things that could be happening, I think, is what are the consequences of this fall if you are very active. So if we think about number of falls in one axis and then how much physical activity you do in the other axis, then I would expect, and this is our paper on the left side, you can see that shows there is a U-shaped association between these two. So what I would think is that if we then add a new axis, this is a new thing on the right side that says the consequence of fall accidents, even though you start to fall more when you are here on the right side, I would expect then that the consequences of these falls would be then reduced, even though you're falling more. So meaning that if you fall here and you are very low activity level, you will have really bad consequence of these falls, while if you're here, those falls will be, just some small problems and you are ready to go again. So what we look at, this is just hypothetical, and we try to look this in this study. What are the consequences of these older adults? And if we look at what are the consequences from all the falls that we had, and we had a lot of falls, only one actually is considered serious. Is when we have a fracture in the hip joint here on the femur around the hip joint. So this is the only one of all the injuries we have was actually considered serious. So that might be an indication, and we are still be meeting this paper very soon also, showing that maybe you're falling more or you're falling just as much as if you get very active, but you are not getting so affected by that fall anymore. So then we think, okay, there's a lot of physical activity there for elderly, for the older adults. So what can we do? Well, what can you do to reduce that? If you go today to the literature, try to find out what is the effectiveness of the training that we provide for older adults, we can see actually that is only reducing 23% of these falls. And here is based in a huge study, very famous for Sheraton, where they try to identify many studies that try to provide physical training and fall against falls to older adults, and this saw that it's a very limited effect we have, only a reduction of 23%. However, they come with really good recommendations, and I think that's very important because some of these studies did work better for reducing falls than other studies. And what did they find is like if you have to train something, balancing training and challenging balance, that's a recommendation. You have to have a certain volume of this training, about 2 to 3 hours per week. And now here is also something very interesting because they are recommend exercise in groups. So meaning that for some reason, social interaction is affecting your risk of falls, at least the effect of this training. That's something very interesting. And then if you have extra time, maybe you do some gait training. And if you have extra time, maybe you do some strength training. Well, then I decided at some point to do a RCT with a new idea of training. Why that? Because if you try to combine these recommendations with the risk factors, and then you see what the previous studies did, you can see that they are very monotonic. They were looking at very few factors when they train, and not a training that could actually work on many things at the same time. And then I was trying to really find out what type of training we can provide that we would, do or follow the recommendations, and at the same time attack a lot of those risk factors. And then comes the dance, because I think the dance it is a way of training a lot of these recommended points plus the factors. And what we did. We established this RCT where we are looking at two different groups. Actually, was two different groups where they were actually training. So we had a secret training where they were doing some fitness in groups. And we have dance where they're doing salsa training. All those training were 2 times per week during 26 weeks. So they were half a year where they were training with us. And those trainings were in person. So they were coming to us and we are training them very actively twice a year. And that was a few years ago, and I don't know if you guys heard, but we had something that's called COVID-19 pandemic. And just imagine we were in the middle of our training sessions, and here in Denmark, everything was closed. We closed everything very, very early. We could not do anything, especially the older adults. They were, the more affected population. So the government really put a lot of focus on them. So they really could not do much. So we said, okay, what could we do? We just in the middle of our RCT, what we gonna do? And then we start do what a lot of people done that time. We start providing training online, both the training for the dancing. So that means that we are setting up a Zoom meeting where they were just logging for their homes. They were training, dancing, and for the strength training, the circuit training, they were receiving videos where they could just perform whenever they could. And what we did, we just measure a lot of things. I'm not going to go into details on that, but I'm going to just say that when we compare the data of the performance of these older subjects before the online training and after the online training, we cannot really see much difference. So it seems that they are just as effective. And one of the things that was very interesting to see is that if you look at the attendance when it was in person for dance, it actually has increased when we combine afterwards with the digital training. And here we are just seeing who is attending the Zoom training, and we're just checking the names. Here we have this number of 100. Well, that's what we got. What I don't believe so much is because even though we jump a lot here, this was sent some videos and links for them. We just asked, did you train? Did you train? And apparently 100% of them say, yeah, we did train a lot all the time you asked. I don't know. That's the number we got. But at least we have in the dance, we are sure that the attendance has improved. But what happened with the fall accidents? Actually, we did find a very good response in relation to number of falls, and this is only 6 months. So in relation to the control group, they were actually falling much less, and there is no difference between the dance and the fitness group. So that was very encouraging because when we replaced 50% of our training, and that was kind of lucky because the COVID came really when we were hit the middle of our training sessions. So half of the training were online. So there was no difference. So there was just effective, and they were good at reducing the number of falls. If I go now in the last part, because then this COVID-19 did affect our project, and we saw that the digital part was something that could be really introduced in a broad sense for training and reducing falls and improving health quality. So then we look a bit more about that. So why? Because it was very concerning that we know that the physical activity during the COVID has decreased a lot. And if you are less active, a lot of things get worse, and you do increase the risk of falling if you are less active. So that we are very lucky to start the Moving Together project. We got funding to run this new project, which is what we call an implementation project, which was in combination with the municipality here from our city. Rasmus, the one in the picture, he was a postdoc. So it's a postdoc project that we now decide to have this holistic approach, because there was an interesting thing. For us, what we like to say is that, the training that works for you is the training that you do. And what we saw from the first project was that when the project was over, and then we had the fitness training, and we have the dancing group also training. The ones on the dance group came to me, and they were kind of mad that the project was over and they could not train anymore. And then we had to find out a solution for them to continue training and dancing. So there were a couple of them that came to me, and then we made a new training group outside the project that they could continue meet, have a social life also there in dance and train. It was really good. So when we look at the fitness training group, there was 0 that came to us. And when we talk about that seems like that the dancing was also giving a lot of the mental health things to them. So actually help not only the physical, but also for stress, maybe, all these mental problems that can be also related to the COVID and lockdown and everything. So it seems like the mental part also was important for them, and the dance could help them in that. So what we did now, we then decided to take a next step and say, okay, let's implement that in a broad sense here in the commune, in the municipality here in Aalborg. And then we provide only online training twice a week for 3 months. And once per month, that would me coming and give some forró. This is a kind of Brazil. I'm from Brazil, as I said. There's a kind of Brazilian dance where I would meet them in person and give a in-person training. So the whole idea of this moving together is that because of all these problems with the COVID-19, the reduced physical activity just became a vicious cycle that things only get worse. And we believed that, giving the opportunity to train online will be the first step for those that are having difficulties to getting physical active again after a huge period of lockdown. So what we did, you guys, everybody is actually open. We made a YouTube channel with 30 plus videos. I think we actually have 45 plus now videos with training. That's open. The only problem is Danish. We're talking Danish there, but still you can follow a lot of the training. So it's open for everybody there, and people can just go and see. And there is dates and everything. So all the digital material for our training is public. It's available, and everybody could just follow. We made this library, and I think it was very interesting because we could see in Denmark, different municipalities start to consume this training from different parts. It was, the power of the digital health, and again, reaching people that maybe cannot really come to the centers and train. We could really have a really nice overreaching for different people around Denmark. Even though Denmark is very small, they are very secluded and they don't move too much. So it was you could see a very powerful reaching tool for training. And we see that now that has been being used a lot. So we're very proud of this channel because they has been used. It was not just waste of our time. But when we look at what we have measured, because now we want to see what happened to them. We did measure a lot of things. I'm gonna go through these things very very fast here, because what I can see show here for you guys, and we also write in this paper now. We just finished the analysis last month. I show you doing this firsthand. They're actually getting stronger. After these 3 months of online, they are getting stronger in their arms. And I think that's very interesting, because if you think about mechanisms of fall, what you're going to use to protect when you fall, you're going to be your arms. So they are having stronger arms here. They are having a better what's called cardiovascular capacity, which is also very important for quality of life. And another thing that was impressive, that's how much flexibility increased here. That's hamstrings flexibility, which can help them also, in the daily life. As I said, this was a holistic approach. So we have had scientists for the humanistic social science in the project, doing interviews and questionnaire with them. asking how did it go, and all those social and humanistic tools, which I'm not good at. Therefore, we made this partnership, and they found also very interesting results. They are reporting very good benefits for taking this online training. And I'm not taking these ones here. I'm only showing the quantitative data. And finally, the last results that we found here, which is very important for the problem that I started mentioning, is what we call the mini-best test. This is the dynamic postural stability. What we find here is not a significant improvement, but a clinical relevance improvement of their balance. And not only balance, is the dynamic postural balance. So what we measure here is that how good they are to, for example, recovery for postural perturbations. And they were actually getting better, significantly better, clinically better after only 3 months of this online training. So that was basically how we try to investigate in 2 different studies how dance can help older adults when we combine, especially the last one, these digital solutions. Seems like it's very promising. We are not finished there. I'm actually planning other applications for grants applications. So I just would like to use the opportunity for you that listen to me. If you have any interest in collaborating in this area, please contact me, because I'm sending more applications, and I'm always really thankful if somebody wants to join us in this challenge of reducing the burden for the elderly, the older adults, but also the society in general. So these are my contacts. I would like to say thank you very much for the different agencies that actually support. And yeah, I'm open for questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. That was a really interesting presentation, and for me personally, it's very topical as well because as I mentioned, I'd spent part of the summer schlepping around Ireland with my dad, who's 85, and hopefully he won't nab me for a HEPA violation, but he. Although he's very healthy and very independent, he's also at higher risk of falling because he had back surgery a couple of years ago. So I listened to this with a great amount of interest. I see that Asaf had come in online during the presentation. Hi, Asaf. I'm afraid we're going to have to bump you because we don't have enough time for a third presentation. But if it's okay, can you come back next month? I'll send you the details and everything, and we can hear your presentation also on music and dance. It was quite a coincidence that we have 2 presentations on how dance and music can be used in very different ways to tackle issues around exclusion when it comes to age. I had a couple of questions, but I don't want to hog the stage here. So I'll open the floor up to everybody else. Is there does anybody have a question on Rogerio's work? Jelle?
Yeah, so it's I was impressed by when you said how when COVID happened during the mid of your data collection, it actually became an opportunity for you rather than an obstacle. It's interesting how life sometimes is like that. Although of course when you were studying the digital versions during the pandemic, that's what basically all people could do while they had to stay home. So that's definitely going to be different when you offer digital stuff right now when the world is open again and people have all sorts of other things to do, both as a source of distraction and as a source for other physical activities. And I was curious to what extent you think you found that it didn't really matter back then during the pandemic. to what extent that's true today.
Yeah. So as you said, we tried to take the positive challenge there when the COVID came to see find a solution, try to learn from that, and that. What we could see now when we provide this digital training was actually that we understood that some people have difficulties in getting started, and it can be very frightening to just go to a center where people are already exercising very good and you don't do anything. So seems like for those people, getting the online version to do at home, you didn't have to turn on your camera, was a very good first step to start to feel more confidence and getting used to be around people exercising. And then that's what actually that's what the social scientists they found out. They are actually ready to the next step. That's what we also write in our articles, that they are asking now, how do I do my next step? And that's why we are also in contact now with the municipality, where we actually try to establish what is the moving together part 2 for these people now that don't need much more of the digital. Maybe they can now start doing the physical, the in-person part. But was a learning curve there. But I don't know, Jelle, if I answer your questions.
Well, so it's it's of course to some extent you need to speculate, but well, you do have these YouTube videos out right now, so you're still doing the digital stuff as we speak. So I was wondering, to what extent do you think the value or the role of the digital tools has changed over time? I agree that there's this group who feels self-conscious when they're exercising in an environment where maybe other people are better than they are. So to some extent there's still a niche need for this. But to what extent do you think it's different than it used to be during the lockdown?
Yeah, and I think if I can, be a bit optimistic, I think maybe we found this new niche that's the ones that need help to get started. And it seems like the digital will always be a good start, no matter where we are, because they are afraid or a bit cautious to sign up to a fitness center or go to the activity centers and just start it. Can be a bit intimidating for many. So I think it's still very valuable, and I think there is more value that we still do not find out now, and I think that's why your research is also very important. To find out best ways and how to reach people the way that they need it, and what to provide them what they need and how to do that best. So I think it's a lot of value is still to be found.
And that was, it was kind of my thought when I was listening to your presentation as well. And just thinking back, I realized this is just a sample of one, but my experience schlepping around with my dad in Ireland, I found that the number one, because as I say, he is at risk of falling. And I found that the number one thing which helped him avoid falling was his ability to ask for help. If he when he got off the plane, they offered him a wheelchair and he took the wheelchair. If he was going down a flight of steps and there was somebody who was willing to offer their hand so that he could better balance himself, he was willing to take that. He uses a cane. My mom would never use a cane because she just thought that was a symbol of being old. And he was never shy about any of those things. So I could see, as I was going around with him, a number of places where he was at higher risk because we were outside, we were on uneven pavement, we were going downstairs where maybe there wasn't a proper railing and everything. But he didn't just sort of, he recognized the fact that he was 85 years old and he would need some help. And I was kind of thinking when I was listening to your presentation, maybe one of the factors, one of the reasons why participation in dance that your participants took part in and it resulted in fewer falls is just their willingness to take part in this, that they saw an opportunity to take part in an activity which might seem a little bit age related. They're offered this because they're older, but because of that, they're taking up an opportunity in order to reduce their risk.
I agree, and that's why in our RCT, we have the dancing group that did show less. But I always say that we also had a positive control where we are offering regular strength physical training for those older adults, and they also reduced the risk or the number of fall accidents there. So seems like I will, even though I love dancing, we investigate that. I think there are a lot of positives there, but what you're saying seems also to be true. The willingness to get started, it means something. So that's why I think, if we go back to the digital part of the group here that we discussed, the digital part could be, a way of getting these people started. And try to find ways to do, in my place, nobody sees me, I can do it, and you can get, start getting the benefits. And it seems like what we find out is that when you reach a certain point, you just want more. And that's why I think what is the big challenge is to get started. But once you are in a very in a good program, you just want more, and that's when you're ready to go forward to your with your training. So there is something intrinsic to these people that also they search for. But I think we as researchers, we have to find out how to make these solutions also available for those that are less willing to get started, because it's a huge problem.
You know what? I'm going to bring Asaf into the conversation here because I don't want to give away his presentation, which we'll hear next month. But he looked at participation in dance of older people in older groups and those in mixed groups, and some of the results, some of the social factors in this. And I was wondering if just to get your thoughts on this, if you had older people participating in dance, which involved age mixed teams, would they be more likely to participate?
Yeah, well, I think Rodrigo's interest was more about consequences of falls and how a dance can improve physically. I'm looking more of the social benefits of dance. And we know that when people are dancing in synchrony, and I will talk about it hopefully next month, then if you are moving together with another person and you listen to the music, then you are more likely to trust him more. You are more likely to would like to know him more. And there are also some social benefits like empathy and a sense of similarity. So I will later also elaborate more about perception. So and about ageism, about negative attitudes towards older adults. So when it seems like when in the intergenerational dancing, some ageist attitudes can be mitigated, and this is what I can add to this talk, a little bit of a social perspective for dancing together.
It's I guess the dynamics of not just the participation in dance, but also how you get involved would be a really big factor in this. If you if you take part, if you ask somebody to take part, an older person to take part just by themselves, then they're probably going to be very self-conscious. But I would be very self-conscious about I can't dance, so but if I were to go with a couple of friends of mine, and we were just having a laugh about it, maybe I'd be more likely to take part. And if I was going to somewhere where there was a good mix of people, you know, not just in terms of age, but in terms of background and so forth, maybe I would be a little bit, you know, well, even if I'm not good at dance, at least I can make some friends. I could have interesting conversations and so forth. So maybe be a little bit more likely to participate. In which case, there could be some very positive outcomes in terms of my physical capability to you know, to manage if there's you know, if I do have a fall.
Yeah, sure. You know, research also shows that there is, when dancing together, there is like an ice breaking effect. So there is a really nice study that compares dancing together or doing some other activities, and it seems like when you are dancing together, when you are moving together or singing, it's like really, it happens really fast. It promotes interaction quite fast compared to other activities.
That's really interesting stuff. Right. Does anybody else have any questions or contributions to Rogerio's work? I'm going to. It's a shame that I didn't get my dad on the call because I think he would have been really interested in this. He's there are just so many strategies that he's taken to mitigating the risk of falling. And it was an interesting time with him to see how he was managing that. And in the end, I was the only one that ended up falling. I was jogging for a little bit, and I just fell flat on my ass. But he was able to make it the whole month without any injury. So I was able to bring him back, send him back to my sisters without you know, in one piece, which I think was a good thing. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for two great presentations. This was a really interesting discussion. So let's all give it up for Jelle and Rogerio for their great presentations. Great. And I'll see everybody next month. I'll let everybody know also when both these presentations and Ethika and Yang's presentations last month will be up on the social media platforms for Diginet. And if I don't see you beforehand, everybody have a great remaining part of the summer.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.